Welcome back to the Vintage Sewing Machine Garage, everyone. I am making a video for you today on a machine that I recently was able to procure, and I bought it because I wanted to do a restoration on it and also talk about it. It's a machine that sometimes gets confused with other models. There are people, for example, who will have this machine and they will advertise it as a Singer featherweight. But it is not, and if you ever pick one up, you'll realize it is not lightweight like the featherweight is. And then sometimes people call it, they'll just call it a Singer, or they'll call it a 66, or they'll call it any number of things. But this machine is, the one that I just got, is a Singer 99K. Now, the 99, has been in production, was in production almost as long as the Singer 66, which it is based off of. Now, this was called the Singer 3/4 machine. Now, what did they mean by that? Does that mean it was less powerful or less of a sewing machine? Absolutely not. In fact, it is the equal of the 66, and the primary difference has to do with the width of the machine. And by width, I mean the width of the body, the width of the drivetrain, but it has the same motor power, the same piercing power. And the reason that they created this at all was to offer a machine that people could pay for slightly less than the Singer 66, which of course the 99 is. In fact, if you look at the underside and didn't measure the width, you would actually think that you were looking at a 66, and that's because, well, you basically are, only a less long version of it. So, how do we know this? Let's turn here. I'm going to zoom in for you all, and I'm going to show you what is essentially a classic mechanism that was in production by the Singer company, and we'll talk in a minute about just how long that was. If you ever are curious, when you see a classic black Singer sewing machine that has this beautiful shape that the Singers had for, oh good Lord, 100 years or something like that, then if you're not sure, one of the ways to tell is to look underneath, and if you hold the hand or you turn the hand wheel, you don't even have to turn the hand wheel. I'm doing this just for your benefit so you can see the moving mechanism. You'll notice that it does not use a drive shaft underneath. There is a series of linkages, and when I say linkages, I mean very heavy, thick linkages that connect from the hand wheel side of the machine all the way over to the bobbin and the shuttle side. So when I turn the hand wheel, you'll see this mechanism moving, and of course, notice that as I turn the hand wheel, it oscillates because this is an oscillating machine. Now, if you can look under any Singer 66 and you'll see the same mechanism, only it's a little longer, right? It's about 25%. When I say longer, I mean width-wise. You know, you would come over and it's just a longer machine. It's also a heavier machine. And of course, the 99 was built as a portable sewing machine. It's still like carrying a bowling ball, but just not quite as heavy as the 66 that it's based on. Now, just as with the Singer 66, the 99 was in production almost longer than any other Singer design that I know of. And you guys can help me out, my viewers, if you know of a design that Singer had that was in production longer. So, the 99 began production right around the same time as the Singer 66, or shortly after. This design of a sewing machine was introduced by Singer in 1902, and when this design was basically kept in production, let's go sort of in a timeline. I'm going to come over here and show you the other 99 that you all have seen before in probably several of my videos. Now, if you look closely at this Singer 99, you will notice it looks very similar. It has a decal over here on the pillar, which the newer one, the newer one that I was showing before, doesn't have. but it is essentially the same machine. See if you can catch the differences, guys. Take a look. There are some differences. Some of these are fairly important. These were upgrades over the years, and you would expect some upgrades because when the Singer 99 was reaching the end of its production, it would change again. It would go from being a black machine to a color that I call pistachio green, a little lighter than this fabric here. And that was, they rechristened it the Singer 185J or 185K, depending on which factory it was made in. They were built in both Canada and the United Kingdom. And that, let's see, the 185J that I have shown all of you, the Canadian-made machine, that machine was made in 1958. And I believe somewhere between 1958 and 1960, Singer ended production. Now, imagine this. They start production of a design in 1902. And whether you're talking about the longer 66 model or the 3/4 shortened 99 model, you're talking about a very long production. You're talking about 58, I don't know, 57 years of essentially making the same machine. Now, that's extraordinary. But even this model here, this one, I've looked up its serial number, and it was made in 1923. And it would have been one of Singer's very first machines that left the factory with that new technology called electric power. I know that sounds silly to say, but it was. And the reason I know this is because on the right side of the machine, it has a large opening, and it has a little sliding spot for the bracket that holds the motor. Now, if you have a Singer 66 or 99 that would have been built before electricity, one way to identify that is sometimes they would retrofit those machines for electricity because people loved their machine and Singer wanted their business. These people were not interested in buying a new machine. They may not have needed one. And so Singer would retrofit them. And sometimes there was you won't see this on the 99s, but on the 66s, there's a round porthole plate. There's like an access in the back for servicing, and there's normally a nickel plated decorative piece that covers it. And they would go in, they would mount the light fixture on that, and they would also mount the motor on the back of the machine. And that was one way they could retrofit, that was one way they could retrofit their machines for electricity. The other way was sometimes they would go to the trouble of boring a hole and threading it into the side of the machine. That was a lot more labor intensive. You have to remember these machines were out in dealers, and so they weren't necessarily near the Singer factory. But I've seen it done both ways. But even in 1923, this machine left the factory with its electric power. Now, let's take a look at some of those differences. Notice you have stitch length control here on this knob, and you have a bobbin winder that looks like this. It's a very clever design. Still has a strong spring since 1923. This thing's almost 100 years old, and the spring still works. It's just amazing. The bobbin tire's been replaced. I believe the spring is original. Keep in mind, this machine was in a case. It has a wooden, bent wood cover. And my experience is that machines in cases, as long as they're kept indoors, can really get preserved quite well. Now, this machine has electricals. It has a motor design that looks different than the later ones. It has a series of pieces. And then you'll see this. This is an early Singer foot controller design. And it says Semenco, Great Britain. So this was made in Great Britain. And it's the main thing I've noticed about this one, of course, is you push your foot down here. And it also has some electrical controls, some connectors that look They look foreign to me. That doesn't mean they're foreign. I have to investigate because I have not yet figured out if this machine was made for North America, because North America got machines from the Scotland factory, the factory Singer had in Great Britain, for sale here, but then occasionally people would bring them over when they emigrated. So I have to investigate this. I have a 201 like that now, and I'm having to convert it to North American electricals. But again, this is very, very ancient wiring. I have no intention of reusing this. All of this will need to be replaced. In fact, this machine has wires. I see electrical tape, which I do not like. But the biggest thing I notice, is the fact that the wires from the motor come straight to this little terminal piece, and then they connect to the foot pedal, and then eventually the cord makes its way to the outlet in the wall. Now, I have not tried to plug this in, and I'm not going to. It might be fine, and it might not, but it's not worth taking the risk. I still have to investigate the motor to see if the motor is salvageable. Keep in mind, as motors get older and older, while you can have issues with any motor from any device, this motor is 100 years old. So I would be very cautious about restoring it. Now, there are people who do that. There are people who restore very old electrical equipment. I mean, really old electric motors. They might even go and rewire this whole machine the way it was wired in 1923. And particularly people who are collectors might do this. This machine, though, is, it's going to find its way to someone who wants a strong working sewing machine. And my clients don't typically, they want their machines to look beautiful, but restoring the motor, because it's a 1923 motor, is not on the top of their agenda. And so for me to do that, to spend the hours doing that and then charging them for that, is not something that they're interested in. If you, on the other hand, are a collector, that's something that you might investigate having someone do for you. So what else do we see here that is different? Notice that there is, of course, a set of tension dials or discs here on the front, which have been on sewing machines for generations, but you'll notice there's no numbers. There's nothing missing here because there were no numbers. You basically dialed it in by feel. And there is, of course, a electrical light on the back, and I believe the bulbs, it is still universal. Things like bulbs have been around a long time and still are. So if I lift up this machine, there you go, folks. Take a look. It's the same design. So from 1923, 1950, 30 years later, Singer is still using the same mechanism, the same overall drivetrain. And I think I've showed you all before underneath a Singer 185J, and you will see the same mechanism. Now, let's look at the 99 from 1953, the newer, more modern one, quote unquote. A couple of things that changed. Of course, Singer ended up changing the bobbin winder. It's still in the same place and works the same way. It's spring-loaded, just has a different look to it. It's a little simpler to use. There's nothing wrong with the other one. Actually, watching the old bobbin winder, when I get ready to show this 1923 99, I'll show you guys how the bobbin winder works on this. They're really cool to watch, but they do the same thing. Now, one of the things to note, remember I showed you, sorry for the back and forth here, but notice I said when you want to adjust your stitch length, you turn this knob, which still turns wonderfully. It needs some lubrication, but not bad. And that's what you do. Notice there, that's only stitch length, right? Stitch length control. By 1953, whoa, had they modernized this machine. The first thing they've done, other than the bobbin winder I explained, they added stitch length control with a lever, and here's the big deal. Bar tacking, boom. You could go in reverse, right? That is a big deal, and it was a time saver. I personally don't mind. I have sewn on machines that didn't have reverse, and you turn your fabric around, or there's also a technique where you lift up the foot, you can scoop the fabric. And anyway, a lot of you who are treadle sewers on really old machines know this. But in any case, this was one of the latest modernizations to have reverse in a machine. And by the way, it came earlier than 1953. In fact, some of the 1930s singers, the 201s, for example, have reverse. So it's reverse has been around a while. The other thing to note about the 1953 version of this machine is, of course, Singer had changed the tension assembly, and of course, at this point, you have numbered dial. You have a numbered dial, so you can dial in your tension a bit easier. And your light is still on the back. It's a different fixture, different switch, but it's essentially the same type of deal. The motor design was different. Now, the exact differences I can't really go into. I'm not completely clear. They work on the same principle, and they have they both have little grease shafts. These little chrome shafts. You can't see it here, but it's on the back of the motor. I'll try to move the camera once more. And there we go. You can see right here, this is before they did away with it. Eventually they would, on the 185J, which is this machine, it still has a very similar motor, but that machine does not have grease ports. That's what that little metal thing is. By the way, never put oil in there. You don't oil these motors. They take grease for their bearings. Let's see. And then the older one, I don't know if it will show here. There you go, guys. You can see the grease port here as well. So again, there are places you can research the various changes in the design of the motors over time, but it's not really a radical change per se. One thing that did change also, of course, is that Singer had gone to what they call the button style foot pedal. And this is one of the only vintage foot controllers that I restore. I always open them up and I inspect them, make sure that they're not broken or damaged. I clean them, I adjust them, and then I test them. And the key here is to make sure that they are not cracked. There's a porcelain housing inside. You may have seen it in my foot controller video. And they work off of a carbon pile system. I had one recently I took apart and didn't seem to be broken, tuned it, cleaned it, and it did not give me the slow control that I wanted. And I'm not sure if the controller itself was not, maybe it was built differently, or it's very possible that the controller and the motor were not really, they just weren't cooperating with each other, and so I chose to replace it. I think I did that on the black 301 model I have. And I replaced it with an electronic pedal. If my client wants an original button style, I can find them one. They're easy to find. This foot pedal, of course, was in production for decades, like a couple of generations of people. And because they were well made and because they were easy to access, and they also fit into those little knee control adapters that many of the Singer cabinets have, I do like these, and they give you an amazing level of speed control most of the time, not the last one I was referencing, but they give you a lot of speed control for something that is purely analog. There's nothing digital or electronic about this. But again, I always want to have the option to replace these if I need to. Other brands of foot pedals I can clean and adjust. If they run, then they're fine, but they all need to be inspected. Now, what else to say about the 99? These machines were most of the time, just like the 185Ks, that would be the last version of these, they were sold and billed as portables. Now, you could get tables for them. Actually, I have a table, and when I get my 185 rescued, I'm going to offer that machine either a case or a table or both. Those tables are actually harder to find because most of these machines were sold as starter models. Okay, and again, unlike today, back in those days, The 99 was the equal of any machine in terms of its quality. It had the same quality as the 66, and all the others that were in production. They were machined beautifully, but you had to offer different price points. So the way they did that was, they took some of the cost out by making it shorter, and they would offer it typically in a case. And many of these, along with, from the very beginning, all the way to 1958-60, when the last of the 185s was produced, most of the time they were sold in carry cases. And, some people, maybe it was their first machine, or maybe people just didn't want a table, Just like today, some people really like machines in cases, and other people have to have a table. And it splits about 50-50 down the middle, and I never know until the customer tells me or thinks about it. But, again, the 99 uses the class 66 bobbin. That's why it's called the 66 bobbin. It was created for the Singer 66. It is, of course, the drop-in bobbin, the same bobbin that is used by the Singer 201. And, of course, this machine has, just like the 185, it has a felt, or it should have a felt that you oil, like a wick. And what else to say? Oh, I have a little side compartment here. Both of these 99s that I'm talking about here have a little side compartment. Now you might think, well, why does it have a side compartment? I don't know why this is, but some of these machines were sold with knee levers, and the controller for speed was located in here. That's true on my, I have a Singer 15-91, the American version with the potted motor, and that will be coming up for restoration soon. But anyway, it has one of these side compartments, but hiding in there, of course, is its controller. Because there's a hole bored into the base, the hole would be right about here. And of course, you insert the knee controller, and that's how you operate the speed on those machines. But the others, they still have the compartment. This one comes with some accessories, just like many new Singers did when they left the showroom. There it comes. And again, people would keep, needles, gosh, here's some old needles. These look like probably made in Germany, so these needles have been here a long time. And it has its basic screwdriver and, of course, the attachments. I'll go into this later when I talk about the machine once it's overhauled. But again, this is a kind of a nice little thing to have, so everything has a place to go when you take your machine. Whether you take it out at home or maybe you take it over somewhere, maybe you travel with it. This machine is something that I bought for several reasons. One, its paint is gorgeous, and I mean beautiful. I mean, you can see a reflection in it. It is one of the most, it's just one of the most mint machines I've seen. Now, all machines will sometimes have little pips here and there, but the shine of this machine tells me that it was stored indoors and in its case. And like I said, I don't see any nail scratches where people would have used pins. It's possible it didn't get used much. I can't know that. I'm just guessing. Whoever had it took remarkable care of it. And as I've mentioned in recent videos, that's fantastic. And it's very nice for the person that buys it. If you are a restorer, you can charge more for machines that have gorgeous paint and so forth. But the whole machine has to be gone through and overhauled just like any other. Remember, you can't just guess and say, oh, it's pretty, it must be in good shape. No, it has to go through the entire process. So the motor, the hand wheel side, the bobbin winder, all the levers, the tension assembly underneath, and of course I'll be pulling out the shuttle and the bobbin case, just like I did on the 185. I was showing you guys how that was done. Replacing the wick, it all needs to be done. But this will be a really handsome machine. It has a gorgeous bent wood case that's in beautiful shape. And it's just funny sometimes. You know, even 1953 is still, what is it, almost 70 years ago. And for 70 years, this machine has managed to survive in pretty darn good shape. But once it's overhauled, it's going to make a really nice machine for someone. And it kind of makes you wonder, okay, well, why would this be a good machine? Who would it be good for? There are people who do not need lots of extra features. They don't need, you know, they're not interested in doing buttonholes and so forth. Although you can do buttonholes on this machine, you just use a buttonhole or attachment. But the people who often look for these machines, they really want something strong. They are sewing projects where they don't want to have a machine to struggle with. Maybe they have more than one machine at home, but they want a machine that they can sit down and do webbing for tote bags, or maybe they're going to sew a slip cover, you know, and it doesn't matter whether it's heavy fabric or very lightweight fabric. People sometimes want, you know, just give me a good old girl, a good Singer straight stitcher, and in this one case has the convenience of the drop-in bobbin. So again, this is one of many Singer 99s I've had the privilege to find and work on, or will be working on this one. And of course, working on it, if you're a restorer or just someone who's interested in buying one of these, it is literally the same machine as the Singer 66. It's just 3/4 the width, but same power, same performance, same stitch. And of course, the Singer 66 being introduced in 1902, you know, the first ones had lots of extra decals, and they were in treadle machines because electric sewing had not been introduced. That would be something for the future. Anyway, guys, just wanted to share this with you. We don't often talk about the 99. It sometimes gets forgotten, and yet it was one of Singer's most successful machines. Not everyone had the space for a table, but even if they did, maybe they couldn't afford a table. I've shared with you all just how costly sewing machine tables were, and they were built very well, obviously, because both of these 99s are sitting on top of that gorgeous walnut table that holds my Necky BCJ, which is folded underneath. And if that's not a testament to the strength of a sewing machine table, I don't know what is. It's like it's holding, I don't know, 3 or 4 bowling balls, and it doesn't miss a beat. The table doesn't complain. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this, guys. There'll be more to come, of course. Each of these machines will be getting restored. They are both equally wonderful. Which one you would choose would really be just a personal. Some people like the aesthetics of the older 1920s model, and then other people want the back tacking of the new modern 1953 version. So anyway, let me know what you think. Let me know if you have a Singer 99. I think we need to highlight some of these machines that don't get talked about much, because just so you know, 1953, this 99K was built in the Singer factory in Scotland for North America. I think there were 15,000 of them. I think I've got that right. I'll have to go back and check. More than 10,000 were made just that year. So that tells you anything. It was a very popular machine. Thank you all for watching. If you feel the need, please subscribe to my channel. And I appreciate all the support of everyone who tunes in when we have videos. I'll be making more videos soon. And by the way, that 185J, I was going to do a video on it today. I'm still trying to get it unlocked, but we'll talk more about that. It's a little windy outside today, so that video should be coming up soon. And I appreciate you all watching. Take care.